7 days to elections. And I mean, there are some connected issues here about how some politicians depend on the money from Galamsey and other, so that they can fund the election activities. But it appears there are three parties at play at the center of the issues that have come up in the build-up to December 7th elections. There's the Electoral Commission. Then there's one party or one group of people who believe that the Electoral Commission's integrity has come under question. And so they are demanding certain things to be done, like a forensic audit into the voter register and all that. And then there's another group of people who say the EC is doing well. Nobody should interfere in their processes. What was the word that the Attorney General used yesterday? Nation wreckers. And, so there's these three parties at play. I want to know what you think about, one, the EC's credibility and integrity and their ability to handle December 7th elections credibly, and whether or not you support the call that for the sake of transparency and for Ghanaians, really, for the peace of mind that we need going into this election, whether or not they should just agree and conduct this forensic audit, because the NDC is set to demonstrate on the 17th of this month to force the hands of the Electoral Commission, so to speak, to do this. I'll start with you, Doc.
Okay. So I'm always of the school of thought that no serious-minded party will depend on a referee for a win. In that case, no serious-minded party will depend on the Electoral Commission for a win. And I can cite many examples. The last example I can really pick on is the fact that under the Mahama administration in 2016, in as much as people thought that Mahama was in bed with Charlotte, not literally, but
we get the point.
Charlotte could not make a call for the NDC because the win was so glaring, so clear, that any quote-unquote idiot can see the gap and say that 1 million votes, nothing I can do about it. So I believe that it is erroneous, even for me as MPP, to be dependent on the Electoral Commission at this point in time, Jean Mensah, on December 7th, to produce votes for me. It will be very wrong. Very, very wrong. So
just a quick interjection before you go on. Maybe not depend on the Electoral Commission, but in terms of its MO, its modus operandi, and how it conducts.
I'm building my case.
That is where the devil is.
I'm building my case. So my key thing here is that, one, I don't think that the Electoral Commission will always be appearing to be fair to all parties. It's impossible. There are policies that she wanted to bring that some MPP people were opposed to. They are the same policies that some NDC people were in support of.
Like what?
Policy? I mean, listen, let me cite
one
example. Many of the MPP parliamentarians were of the opinion that using just one identity would not help us. I mean, people have passports. They might not have Ghana card. They have Ghana card. They might not have a passport. I mean, so it is erroneous in this biometric age to necessarily demand just one form of identification. So not all of us were in support of that. We thought that there would be a better day, a brighter day for that to happen. And always also thought about the fact that the onus of Ghana card, ramping up their production because of election was going to be a wrong thing in terms of cost to the state. So I'm happy that that LI or that instrument was, shut down. There are many other things that later on the NDC and NPP all agreed to. And I think Omanebo Wama, am I mistaken, from the NDC, even agreed to the mode of operations moving forward. So case in point, one, we hope and would push that the Electoral Commission is as transparent, as credible, and as fair, so that every vote counts. And that is all we political parties can preach and push for. Beyond that, your own party needs to have an appropriate machinery to be able to call. You know, Afarijan's...
To call what? The election?
The election. I mean, Afarijan's...
but political parties are not supposed to do that. It's actually illegal for a political party.
Let me make my point, in the sense that Afarijan says that... Speak. Yeah, Afarijan says that elections are won where? At the polling station or center. Now, the key thing here, I mean, Joy, you know that the December 2020 elections, you had your results because you were also collated. MPP had their results, they were collated. One party I wouldn't mention, up to date, I don't know what their collated figures are because they went to court rather asking the court to provide...
I'll mention it for you. You are referencing the NDC.
The collation figure.
Bongo
and it was reduced. Collation was reduced to coffee or biscuits, unfortunately. So I think that my recommendation, and this is me advising the NDC at no cost, do the right thing, make sure that you can collate well, so that when the loss comes, you are clear in your seats, and do not come and say that, that favorite word, right, which one of them said, we are in a comfortable lead, when clearly we're not in a comfortable lead. But it's one of the famous quotes, right, when you've performed so poorly, 1 million gap, and then you come and say that we're in a comfortable lead. So that guy actually even has to be sued by the EC.
Be that as it may, that elections are won at the polling stations. There are certain mechanisms or certain facilities and procedures in place that when you get it wrong, the confidence of the people and the other political parties is eroded in the Electoral Commission, which is supposed to be independent. Yeah. And the issue started from the attempt to abolish indelible ink, wrong figures, announcements of wrong or discrepancies in the figures that the EC had provided.
So let me help you.
Hold on. There's been a number of issues. The current one is that there are issues with the provisional voters register, right? They themselves have come out. Dr. Bosman Asari himself said it was an honest mistake. So if you say it was an honest mistake, how do you correct it and ensure that you restore the confidence of the people back in this commission, which is entrusted to lead us to the December 7th polls, so that this nation comes out victorious?
So if you're a data analyst, which I've done in my previous life, in fact, I did a lot of numbers, economics is numbers. And if you believe in Edward Deming, who's like the authority on quality assurance in the world, then you'd come to appreciate that in any production, there are errors. And in electoral commission's work, there'll be clerical errors, administrative errors. There's no way that there's every name spelled correctly on the electoral commission's database. It's impossible. Even in the Germany, when you go through their airports, my goodness, they are too careful. Even that, people slip through their system. My point I'm making here is that, listen, there will be issues with the Electoral Commission, regardless of NDC being in power, MPP being in power. It doesn't mean that we should say that out of maybe 100 data points, if there are 2 data points in error, that means the whole system is crashing. No, that would be very wrong. In any production line, if it's even cocoa drink production, some of the sachets will be empty. And it happens. If you go to a production line today, it'll happen that out of maybe 1,000,
Doc, and where I'll start from Edward Bawa with is not that there's a perfect system. Nowhere is there a system that is perfect. But how close or far from perfection is the system? That is the problem. Some of the mistakes that have been made by the Electoral Commission are egregious. And you know why people are so, you could say, are hell-bent on saying that the EC must get things very right as much as possible? Because of some of these errors. For the first time, one election, 2020. How many times did we call the election? How many times did we have...
Let me come in there.
And some of what has followed in limited voters registration and everything. That is what is scaring people. It is not about...
Let me address
there's a
that
system
issue,
that is foolproof.
Let me address that issue. Listen, if we'll be truthful to ourselves, when Afarijan calls elections, the next day, the data always changes. This is Akufo-Addo, because at the time of calling, new information comes. But when he's calling, he knows that the changes will not be monumental to change the outcome of the election. And it is erroneous for somebody to say that, unless that Jean Mensah called NDC won, and then later on came to say MPP won. That is a different thing. But the key question is that, listen, I remember in 2004, for Ajan Sotum, once our numbers came, it was done deal everywhere that MPP had won. And at that time, when Akufo-Addo made the call, other places' numbers were not in. So I believe that, listen, and let me even add,
because
with the American
situation
system,
is not exactly the same.
No. Wait. Even in the American
complete
system,
that point, because
when they call,
really come
the vetted numbers are different. About 2 months after the election.
That point you're making, I don't think that's the crux of the matter.
A projection of an election, for example, assuming that, and using your example, that there were some police stations that had not come. Yeah, they can look at it and make a projection. So the numbers
and make a call.
Change. That's not what they're talking about. When you have a situation where you have the composite number, the total number, and then
not verified though, not verified number.
And who verified?
And the EC, mind you, when they put out, and I'm making this very data sensitive, impression on Ghanaians that, listen, when the numbers come in today and it's not verified, you wait for verified numbers. If that one has an issue, fine.
Thanks for those points.
Yes.
Let me come to Edward Bawa, because that's one of the points you're making, and that's what I was going to tell you. There are two different issues. They are not necessarily what you're saying, but your side has claimed, for example, that in some instances, over 200,000, votes or paddings have happened. If you like, that in some areas you see an added 3,000, 5,000, and all of that, different from the data you have. You constitute this, and it's over 200,000, which could shape an election, a presidential election. Tell us about your concerns when it comes to the EC and how it's conducted its work.
So thank you very much. Let me first state that what we have seen is just the tip of the iceberg. But at least it is sufficient enough to ask the EC to listen to our side of the story and ask for a forensic audit of the register. For example, we have realized that, remember that just before the exhibition, the NDC had put pressure on what they call it, the EC, to give us the provisional register, because we needed to see what the register looked like, so that when people are then going into it, we can check that. It was all given to us the night before the election, before the exhibition. Even with that limited period, we were able to, for example, realize that about 244,000 names who had been transferred in the previous elections, that's the 20 and other things, were added to the 2024 transfer list. That was the first thing that we realized. Two, we realized that about 15,000 plus names were transferred without knowing exactly what their original place of registration was. Anybody, if I'm supposed to transfer my votes from, say, Joy FM, Joy FM to Asempa, I'm using as an example. Basically, you should be able to know that my original transfer was here. So you know the path through which I did that. So about 15,000 plus, we do not have that. You have a situation where almost 3,000 names were transferred. So for example, usually when I transfer my vote, assuming that again to Joy FM, I transfer my vote to, say, another police station, my name will be captured in the absentee voter list. The absentee voter list is made up of two. It's made up of those who have been transferred and special voters. Because on that day, even though they are registered voters, they will not be voting in that particular day. So the absentee list captures those two things. Then you have situations like that. You have situations where even we have corrupted files, that the pictures of the individuals are not there. You have situations where people's names were transferred from one police station in another region to yet another region, another constituency, even without the knowledge of the Electoral Commission. to the extent that the Electoral Commission itself had the cause to suspend the official who was involved. I am giving you these things to say. These were not, and these are all facts that have been admitted by the Electoral Commission. The NDC says, yes, the centrality of the integrity of every election is also hinged on the register that is going to be relied upon. Adumaku Kisi and myself have fought many times to see the integrity of the register that is being used in running our primaries. We've done that because it is at the core of the elections. If I go to a polling station and I cannot find my name at the register, at the place, I do not have the right to vote. Or maybe if I am not even qualified to vote and my name is there, then I slip in. So the register is very key. The NDC says, you have admitted this. But as we speak, what is the extent to this, of this problem? Because this is just what we have, within the short time, we have discovered. So we
the party,
yes. Yeah. And this is things that we have discovered that the Electoral Commission has admitted. And of course, Bossman himself has admitted that in public media engagement. We're saying that on the basis of this, and because we want to have a credible elections, and for a credible elections, we need a credible register, let's have an audit of this particular register. The Abu Ramadan's case is a typical example. The Abu Ramadan's case, he went to court over the issue of the, what do you call it again? The National Health Insurance thing. At the time, the evidence that was provided in court did not show the numbers that were involved. But at least there was some evidence that there were some people who had been registered using the, what do you call it? The NHIL card. On the strength of that, the Supreme Court asked for an audit of that to expunge those people who were registered, who were captured using that as a source of evidence.
So let me ask you this. What is the end game? It has been made mention of that this wouldn't be the first time we are having such an external audit of our register.
Yes.
In fact, I believe the UNDP assisted us to do some in the past when your side, the MPP, also had concerns. Why not do this now? But what do you hope to achieve with this? Because it will also come at some cost.
So, first, so you need to consider the cost. You say it comes, you ask yourself, the cost of having post-election violence because people do not trust the outcome.
Are you forecasting violence?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the cost of that and the cost of auditing a register, you make that and make a judgment call on that. That's the first thing. Two, what we are saying is that, look, these were things that were brought to the attention of the Electoral Commission. Our point is that if, for example, you audit that, you will be able to, for example, identify the vulnerabilities of the system. What are the vulnerabilities? Because if you have a situation where people can do transfers without the Electoral Commission knowing about it, it is a clear indication of a vulnerability of the system. We will be able to know what are the different vulnerabilities that we have. How do we put in corrective measures to be able to deal with that? Two, we will be able to know the extent, because the Tamale South Pusika case may just be one example of a bigger problem. We will be able to ascertain this, and so at the end of the day, we will all have some level of comfort going into the election. And so that is what we are asking for. And it is nothing. Look, if it's a question of budget, yes, indicate that this is the problem. Let the state say that they do not have money.
Are you willing to fund it? Are you willing to pay for it if the state says they don't have the money?
Sweetie,
yeah.
The truth of the matter is that, do you think that the country called Ghana, I know we are broke, and we are seriously broke. Do you think that as a country, if we do know that auditing this register will bring some level of comfort to all the players in the elections come December 2024, do you think that that expenditure will be too much for our budget?
Okay.
Well,
so this is what we're asking for.
You are saying that if you don't get that done, you are hitting the streets on the 17th of this month. Can that compel the EC to do what you wanted to? Will that compel the EC? What will you achieve with that?
So demonstrations, which is legally and constitutionally accepted. One of the primary aims of demonstrations is to put an issue to the front burner. It's one of the reasons for demonstration. Because, for example, if people see people walking on the streets.
Solutions.
Yeah, you put it on the front burner for people to discuss. Then how? You see, so you.
Edward Bawa.
So the issue is to bring it to the front burner.
Right.
Two, is to also let the Electoral Commission know the government of this issue. You see, they think that it is just a man who has just come to the office to speak, and that he's just been too overzealous. This is the concern of majority of Ghanaians. And we just want to draw the attention of the Electoral Commission to that. Trust me, it's just a normal democratic right we are exercising. It is not to do anything. Because when people hear demonstration, this is what they think. We will make our point on September 17th to drum home the need for this.
Okay.
And we will push the Electoral Commission until they see to this.
Let me quickly...